Hot off the presses from the Outdoor Cats Corrections and Clarification Department, we have a very important message. First, for the record, we are never wrong. If we ever thought we were wrong, we were mistaken. Now, I, Chris, did make a little goof up in a previous episode. I referred to the Human Rights Commission as an advisory board, when in fact it is an executive board. Someone who might or might not, definitely might or might not, be a part of that board, might or might not have reached out to let us know in a very cool and friendly way. This mistake actually highlights an even bigger example of the issue, which is that this commission being executive board illustrates how offensive and out of pocket it is that the city manager hasn't responded to their requests even more clearly, because he is apparently even more bound by the charter to do that than we thought. Anyway, I thought I made a mistake, but I was wrong. I thought I was wrong, but I was mistaken. I thought I was wrong, but I did it in a way that actually got greater clarification on the issue at hand, and so I remain undefeated. You're welcome, everyone.
This is sick. That's great. What? Oh man, the least humble correction of all time.
I really appreciate podcasts that are somewhat abusive and dismissive of their listeners. And
you gotta be.
Put us on a pedestal above them. We established that early in our very first episode, and I'd like to continue.
What's up, everyone? Today is Thursday, February 6th, and you are listening to Outdoor Cats. My name is Bill, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Chris Rabarge. We just got done recording a fantastic and soul-restoring, I'm going to go as far as to say, interview with Carla LeBlanc, a nurse at St Vincent. We brought her on because the big news of the week is that Carolyn Jackson, bye-bye, Mrs. Jackson, the CEO.
Bye-bye. You're fired, allegedly.
Gone, loser. She is surreptitiously out the door in a way that Tennant, the company that owns St. Vincent, has yet to even formally announce as of our recording this. And in the, as we'll get to, the first line of the email, the internal email about her stepping down in a few weeks, cites a bad union environment or something like that. Like the union is blamed in the opening sentence, which is fucking awesome. It is a testament to how powerful and effective the nurses union is.
Yeah, that is living free. That is living rent free in your boss's head.
For sure. And you know, that's something Carla does a better job explaining than either of us could. So let's just get right to the interview and let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Carla LeBlanc is a nurse at St. Vincent and a member of the Massachusetts Nurses Association, the most badass union in the state. I think we can all agree. She's been on the strike line. She's been in the trenches. She's been at the hospital for 8 years now. She's no scab, no rat. No, Carla has been making good trouble, taking on the particularly evil rent seekers of the healthcare industry straight to task. And now she's here on this podcast to gloat about the, and I quote, departure of Carolyn Jackson as the hospital's embattled CEO. Carla is not sorry, Miss Jackson, but she is nonetheless for real. Carla, how you doing?
Better now than I've been. Better now than I've been for sure.
Oh man. What a week. What a week for the nurses over at St. Vincent. Carla, if you could just catch us and our listeners up on the basic facts as they stand right now. We have a CEO of Tenet Healthcare that is about to be no more, right?
Yes. So Carolyn Jackson started in about 2018, 2018. She started 2018, 2019 in that time period. And it was clear from the beginning that she was there for a purpose. We didn't know it. I didn't know it. I'm sure people who are a little smarter than I am knew it. But she jumped right in to try to destroy our union. I mean, I believe that from the beginning. And fortunately for her, the hiccup was COVID. So COVID kind of pumped the brakes on the whole plan that they had to break down our negotiations, to destroy us. I mean, to destroy us. It was union busting 101, what she was doing from when she started. And COVID kind of put a hiccup in that. And we went through the strike. With her at the head, disparaging the nurses, back to work. And in a lot of ways, she betrayed the people that were the crossing the picket line. She made promises to them that they couldn't keep, that she couldn't keep. So brings us to today. I think that the bottom line is she was doing just what Dallas wanted her to do. I don't think that she had an actual voice there, which is sad. I would love to have a strong woman CEO and leader in my hospital, but she was a puppet for the corporation.
Right. That corporation, for those who don't know, is the Dallas-based Tenet Healthcare, which owns St. Vincent and a number of hospitals around the country, reports insane quarterly earnings every quarter. And yet the Massachusetts Nurses Association and the nurses at St. Vincent have had to file, how many is it now? 7 complaints in the past year?
7 complaints in the last year. We've filed hundreds and hundreds of grievances, and we've had NLRB charges. I mean, we've been through it. We've been through it, and I'm hopeful that maybe this is a turn in the corner for us.
Right. I want to talk a little bit about how it came to light that Carolyn Jackson is resigning, which is pretty fun. It seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, an internal email it hits the papers before the hospital said anything about it, sort of edgewise. And have they still not commented? I'm not sure, but that was earlier this week. On the email was February 3rd, so sort of news broke on Tuesday. So what has the hospital said anything else?
No. So this is where we're at. And this is, I don't know if other people, in the community or in regular population would get how this is going. There's never been a time in healthcare where all of the different departments are on the same page. It's always ER and ICU are enemies, or ER and the med-surg units are enemies. The doctors and the nurses have conflict, and management and staff have conflict. And this is probably in the last month have noticed that so many people are on the same page, and across the board, people are needing change in that hospital. And so now we're banding together, and people are talking in the hallways that weren't talking before. People are having relationships and conversations that would have never happened prior to this.
Amazing.
That that email was sent to leadership, which I imagine is managers and doctors. And as soon as that hit the inbox, managers and doctors were letting nurses know, like that was their first go-to, their person. They were coming and saying, this is what we've heard, or this is what we've seen. And somehow, I don't know who got that email, but now we have the email that actually gives us, it gives the credit, and I'll take that credit for sure.
I wanted to just spell out a few things about what I think that means. So some things that I think we can say are true is that, first of all, we know that this is happening because the Mass Nurses Association went to the press and said this is what's happening. That means that that internal communication got from the people that it was intended to the nurses union like immediately, which tells us something. Let's just talk about some other things real quick that we know about this that I think give us some indications that I will speculate on. I will not ask you to do that. Carolyn Jackson is leaving in 11 days after the time that some staff was notified that she would be leaving. They were notified on the 3rd. Her last day is the 14th. That's 11 days. There is no named successor. We don't know who is going to be taking over her job. She has not made a statement, and St. Vincent has not made a public statement. So it does not seem that there was a PR plan in place for actually how they were intending, any of them were intending to talk to the press and the public about this. I can read between lines, and I will say that I don't know whose decision it was. I have some suspicions that it wasn't Carolyn's decision to leave. And this has all the markers of a decision that was made pretty abruptly, and in a way that maybe everyone was not actually like expecting or all in agreement on. I'm going to say that. You don't have to.
No comment.
What's the sort of talk? What's the water cooler talk at the at the hospital about this? How are people sort of in tuning this news?
I think the headlines and the story that she's leaving is a symbol, hopefully, that things are changing. At this point, I'm not confident that things will be changing for the better. You know, I've learned over the last few years that I can never be confident that this company is going to do the right thing. But in my opinion, I don't think that necessarily Carolyn Jackson's the biggest problem in that building. And the CNO is, for me, the riskiest for the patients in the community. It's her directives.
Could you spell out what the CNO is for us?
Well, I'm sorry. So the CNO is the chief nursing officer. So she's the boss of all the nurses.
Gotcha.
And she came with the same purpose as Carolyn Jackson did. She's Carolyn Jackson and the CNO are both Tenet hires. They're internal hires from Tenet. Mm-hmm. And she came with the purpose of intimidating us. And I mean, she came around the hospital and said, well, this wouldn't happen in Florida and that wouldn't happen in Florida, like as if we wanted to become Florida healthcare. Like it's not our goal. That's not what we're looking for here. We don't want to become Florida. I don't think anybody would willingly want to.
Yeah. Famously not the state you want to emulate. Yeah.
And so, I know this, but I just want to spell it out for our listeners. The chief nursing officer is a boss. She is not a part of the nurses union. She is not what I would qualify as a worker in the dynamic between workers and bosses. Is that correct?
No. And I'm a union girl, you know, and I'm inclusive to everybody, you know, but she wouldn't be welcome in my union. He would not be throwing out any kind of red carpet for her to take a position with us. It would not be happening. She's
fair enough.
Carolyn Jackson is overseeing the bigger picture of things. And in a lot of ways, I don't want to say this offensive towards women, but in a lot of ways, she was a puppet. She was a puppet for for Dallas. Right. But Denise Kabapel's making the day-to-day decisions that have deteriorated the hospital in the last year that brought us to this day of Carolyn Jackson being the fall guy for all the stuff that's been happening since the CNO was taken over.
Sure. Structural problems remain that still need to be figured out. It's not like, just getting rid of this one puppet is going to change any of that. But it does speak to the power of the union to sort of force the company to make these changes that might make it a little bit harder for someone in Dallas to buy their second yacht, right? But we see evidence of that right in this sort of internal email. First paragraph, after serving nearly 6 years in a, quote, difficult union environment. Carla, when you read that, what was your reaction?
They're not mad.
I was like, you're welcome.
Yeah.
We worked the nurses who were on strike, and I'm sure you know that a lot of the nurses didn't come back. But what I will say is after the strike, we had a good number of nurses who during the strike had gotten jobs at other places and were very happy at jobs at other places and came back to work for that solid month to vote no to they were I don't know if the audience knows this. After that long 301-day strike, right, we came back to the hospital for a decertification vote immediately. Mm-hmm. We back at the end of January, at the end of February, we were having a decertification vote where the hospital was trying their hardest to get rid of the union. They filed the decertification while we were still out on the street.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Could I spell out just very quickly? Could I spell it just very quickly for people what a or actually, could you spell out very quickly what a decertification means in the context of your union?
So even though we were striking nurses, union nurses out on the streets, the nurses in the hospital were still were still considered part of the union. And a nurse who was hired after we were on strike filed and got signatures to dissolve our union. And so when we came back to work, it was 30 days after that we were voting to try to keep our union. So they have to file that with the NLRB, and we had those same union busting attorneys having captive audience meetings with nurses right after being through this horrific strike, when they said that they were going to we were going to come back and we were going to fix things and we were going to get along with each other and
play nice. Yeah.
There was clauses in our return to work agreement of, that we can't be bullying people or harassing people. And I mean, it's harassment to have nurses who've been on strike for 301 days come back into the building and be forced to sit into meetings to talk about how terrible the union is. I mean, we went.
Yeah, that's bullying.
Since not everyone listening, I think, has done union stuff before. Just to say it clearly, a decertification means that this is a process that any union workplace can go through, where the members of the union can decide to take a vote, and if enough of them vote to dissolve the union, then the union goes bye-bye. And that all of your union protections go bye-bye, and all of the protections that you have from the contract that you just stood on the line for 10 months outside in the cold, that you won in your contract, go bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Please continue. I'm sorry.
That was, I think that was what was that fucking guy's name? The scab the plant that filed the decertification. I wrote a whole article about that. I can't remember the name of him.
His name is Cedric.
Yes. What is? Oh yeah. Oh my God.
Cedric Abola.
Shame him.
Yeah.
We termed him C. Dick Run after all that. We had not
Oh
gonna
my
laugh.
God.
Guess what? He's a union member at another Worcester Union hospital, to be unnamed. So
Wow.
where are you going? You're going to the shelter of another union. So that
Right.
in the narrative that the hospital has been portraying through all of this is that all of this is the union's fault, which, I mean, who else are they going to blame but themselves? But they've recently put in press releases that all of this filing that we've been doing is a union stunt because we're for contract negotiation leverage. We don't even have a negotiating team right now. We're not negotiating. Our contract doesn't expire into December. We probably should be starting to get our mind together to prepare for that, but we're not there yet. Right now, where our focus is protecting our patients and protecting our nursing license.
Mm-hmm.
We're main reporter. So if the hospital doesn't want us to be reporting the dangerous conditions, then they should make the conditions not dangerous.
It seems pretty simple to me. Carla, I am wondering, how do I ask this? It's for me, it's the hospital's messaging is obvious bullshit. I think for you, it seems clearly that that's the case. Is it a struggle to articulate that to some people in the hospital? Are there people in the hospital that still sort of think that Tenet is operating in good faith and that the nurses really are to blame?
No, I mean, it's tough because there's some people, I mean, everybody's there because they need a job. Everybody's there because they're there with paycheck. I mean, let's be honest here. People have, you come into this field of nursing or healthcare, wherever you land, in hopes of a greater purpose for sure. But, there's people in that building who are afraid that what we're doing is going to negatively impact them, that if the hospital gets shut down or if people stop coming to the hospital or if people can get laid off. But at the end of the day, we're there to take care of patients, and nobody wants to be in a position to be saying you're not giving, like me getting out there is me saying I'm not giving the best care. And that's a
right
crappy feeling. It's a crappy feeling to say I'm not giving these people everything that they deserve. But that's at no fault of me in what I would be able and willing to do if given the proper resources and staffing and respect, So it's not an easy thing to be my face is out there, my colleagues' faces are out there, our quotes are out there, people know what we're saying. It puts us in a risky position to try to get another job. It puts us in a risky position when you see a patient. I mean, sometimes I see a patient say, "Oh, Carla, you're my nurse." And I say, "Oh gosh, I hope they didn't, see," they look at my name, hope they didn't see something I said in the press. I hope they're not thinking it. But I think that for the most part, the people who see us every day and interact with us every day, whether it's our patients or our coworkers, know the quality and the caliber of people we are. We don't have to explain to those people. But I do worry that sometimes the general public looks at us like we're greedy nurses and that we're asking for, that it's all about money. It's an easy narrative for the hospitals to spin during contract negotiations, because we could sit down and have hundreds of pages of proposals on both sides of the table. And when it comes to the press, the hospital is going to pick out that one page about wages and say that we're greedy. But right now they don't have that option because we're not at the table. They can't push out that we're being greedy nurses. So they're going to pull, from their anti-union, backpack that we're looking for more, that it's about contract negotiations, because that alludes to the public that it's about money, that's what about money.
Right. And anything to misdirect from like the corporate failure to provide enough clean IV needles, right? I think that we should get into the nuts and bolts a little bit of what some of these structural problems are that have led the M&A to file complaints and pose safety risks for patients and nurses. We're not, this is not a medical podcast. We're not speaking to a medical audience, but I think if we could go through some of them quickly, it'd be useful to just give people a sense of what we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, none of us, well, I am a medical background, but, the community is not a medical background, but every single one of us are going to become a patient at one point. Whether that's in a doctor's office, that's in an emergency room, that's in or an operating room. So we're all going to be patients at some point, including myself, including my own family. And that's what we have to be thinking about when we're raising the alarms here. So some of the issues that have been happening in the hospital is, when this new CNO took over, she decided that our ratios that we fought for those in the year 2000 in the original strike that St. Vincent had. We fought for ratios at that point, and the contention of our strike was about patient ratios. And every time you have an additional patient, I think it's like 30%, over 4 patients, every time you add an additional patient, it's like 30% mortality risk for the patients that you're taking care of, right. And outcomes. So we went from floors that were, the staffing was supposed to be a mix of 4 and 5s, was the highest level of ratios that we had. And on those floors, you would have a resource nurse, which would be a nurse that would have 1 or 2 patients and be there to assist the other nurses with what needs that those other nurses and patients had. We had floors that had 4-to-1 ratios, strict 4-to-1 ratios with a resource nurse with no assignment. And the ICU is covered under Massachusetts state law to have 1-to-2 ratio. Right. But what's happened since Denise Kvappel, who's the CNO, the chief nursing officer, has taken over, we've seen nights where the nurses have had 7 and 8 patients. We've seen that the ER is being directed that if you are a boarder is a patient that comes to the emergency room and is deemed sick enough to be admitted into the hospital. We're seeing that those patients aren't being covered by a nurse in the emergency room because there's just not enough staff. And they're saying to the nurses that, the CNO is saying to the nurses or directed through their management that boarders don't count in the numbers. So if you can help them, but you're not really assigned to those patients. Those are the sickest patients in the emergency room if you're ready to be admitted.
That's so
the psych department in the emergency room is a locked unit because these people are a risk to the population and a risk to themselves.
Sure. And
those patients are not having a nurse regularly covered for them that is regularly in the room. They're in a locked unit with a security guard and a unlicensed PCA that are responsible for those people. And they don't have the education to say, I'm seeing the signs of somebody about to be spinning out. So it's not even just about somebody coming in and having a massive heart attack and not having the proper care. We're talking about people that you see on the streets of Worcester, that you see out and about. The police department knows these people very well, in a locked unit at their own devices.
Right.
Yeah. Sounds like jail to me.
All of this under the direction of the CNO. So we started filing complaints at that time. So about this time last year. So for a full year, we've been filing complaints based just upon what this CNO is directing for care. So the end results of this is unfortunately, it's not a surprise to us, but the community might be surprised to know that many deaths, many codes have happened. Many people have had very life-changing outcomes because of the short staffing that we have. So they survive to stay at the hospital, but maybe they're not walking again. Maybe they're not talking anymore because things were missed and we are not able to be everywhere every time. So pressure, the main concern that DPH has seen is that staffing is an issue, being able to monitor, to really be watching the heart monitors for the patients, and increased pressure ulcers. And pressure ulcers are reportable events that get reported to the state. That is, it shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen. People should be able to be repositioned every couple hours. They should have, clean bedding underneath them. They shouldn't be soiled. And we're seeing all these pressure ulcers is a direct correlation that people aren't getting the care that they deserve and that they pay for. People pay a lot for health insurance, and to come and get shot care is insulting. It's insulting to the people paying.
Yeah, that's a really good point to sort of sit with. It's so deeply insulting that this company, which makes more money than God, is putting this downward pressure on staff members of the hospital that are members of our community and patients who are members of our community, and creating dangerous, potentially deadly, and in some instances, actually deadly conditions. And then turning around to the press and saying, these greedy nurses are just doing guerrilla contract negotiations. Well, there's a fucking death toll. I mean, that's fucking sane.
Yeah.
Excuse my language, but
the thing is that I mean, it is. I know that people look out, like, the people who are the Medicare for all people, and I am one, but the Medicare for all people who say, who this is like real life. This isn't like, it could be we could be having like this satire cartoon show, but this is really what's happening. When somebody says, what could be the worst of worst? Like, we're there, we're in this. And to see ICU nurses, like, ICU nurses are the toughest of toughest. They're the like Marines of healthcare. They're the toughest of toughest. They do their thing. And these people are leaving work crying. Like, these people are leaving work crying. They're going home and can't sleep at night and calling out of work because they're like, I had the most horrific, like, horrifying week, and I can't physically go into that building again. And we're losing sleep at night, and these people are sleeping like babies. Like, they're sleeping like babies on their, like, I guess, satin sheets. I don't know what they have. I don't know what these people have.
Yes. What's the best thread count? That's what they've got. Yeah. Carla, I want to say, and I think folks who are regular listeners might know this already. My wife is a nurse, and my wife is not a hospital nurse anymore, but she started her career in nursing as an ICU nurse. And that was not a job she, I think, could have done for the rest of her career. It's a tough job. And I've watched my wife go through years of trying to find a place in nursing where, yes, it's her job, right? Like, she would rather be sitting on a beach than going to work every day. But she does this job for a reason. She's a nurse for a reason. And she's a nurse because she cares about taking care of people and getting them better. And the how undignified it is, the way people in their most vulnerable moments are being treated, not by the people who are trying to help them, but by the neglect of a corporation that is trying to tuck a few more dollars in its pockets. Is just, I'm not surprised. It makes me so angry to hear you say that, nurses are leaving there in tears. And it's so upsetting, because I know why you all do what you do, why you chose this job that you go to do every day. And it's to treat people and help them get better. And it's so infuriating that these people are leaving people in these it's undignified. Like, it will impact their health outcomes, and it's dehumanizing to them in a way that's, like, very, very real and has a real impact.
It does. And I feel the worst, honestly, for the I I didn't come into nursing as like I wasn't a high school kid who went off to college and had always dreamed of being a nurse since I was in kindergarten. And I work with people who are that person. You know what I mean? I definitely work with people who are that person. I lived a little bit of life before I became a nurse. So I didn't have that idealistic, sweet and sacrificing kind of story, and you see these people who've always wanted to be a nurse, and they're the sweetest people, like the nicest, kindest, big-hearted people, and this is going to kill them. This career is going to destroy them, and they're not built for that. And then when the public comes out and says, oh, I was at the hospital and this nurse was so mean and this nurse was so rude and nobody cares, and I feel bad that that's the experience that people have, because people want to have that sweet nurse, but this industry is burning those nurses out. And those nurses you don't leave your accounting job feeling like, oh, I'm the worst person in the world. Like those numbers didn't add up today. You leave a hospital thinking I'm set up for failure. You for years leave that situation saying, I'm not good enough. I didn't do enough. I let those people down. That happened because I missed something. That happened because of me. And you either leave the field altogether, maybe, hopefully, go find a nursing job that isn't as sacrificing to your mental health, or you become that hardened nurse that you find in the ER who's like, doesn't seem to care. But you can't do this for the long term, for a career, and not be broken in some way by the system that's been created by for-profit and corporate healthcare. And whatever is happening at St. Vincent's or at Tenet or HCA or any of these other for-profit institutions all the way across the country, it's going to infiltrate, because you think that these nonprofit hospitals aren't going to say, oh, they're saving money by doing this, or look at what they did. Now this has become the industry standard, and this is going to affect every hospital. So when we're fighting the battle against Tenet, we're fighting against the battle about all these hospitals who don't have the evil intentions that Tenet does, but are going to say, well, that worked and they saved money, and we're going to jump on that. And that suddenly becomes what the industry is.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to see. That's just where we are until we do things like we're doing here at St. Vincent's. I mean, you have to keep fighting, but we wouldn't be able to do this without union protection. I mean, we saw the 9 nurses, it actually is 10 nurses that were fired for whistleblowing. We had 10 nurses fired for whistleblowing for that, for the conditions inside the hospital. And we're lucky that we live in Massachusetts. Those people were able to jump right back on their feet. They're all working in Central Mass. They all have jobs. They're all still caring for our community. And we'll fight for those people. But I don't know what happens to people in communities where unions aren't there to protect the staff and to protect our voices when we make these complaints.
Yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, the churn and burn strategy is like not unique to the healthcare industry, but it is particularly monstrous. Like in journalism and in food, the only 2 things I've really done. It's like, yeah, I have to write a few more articles than I would want to in a day, or like, yeah, I have to cover 2 stations on the line. This is bullshit. And even then I'm turning into a dick who's like a nice person on the streets talking to me. And I'm like, what the fuck do you want? Right. Like I have been made that like jaded asshole who's been rude to people for no reason, but I've never had anyone's life in my hands. Like that. Yeah. It's a totally different thing. If we can't adequately staff like this industry where it's literally life or death stakes, like what are we even doing? Like, what's the point of society?
It's not a luxury. Like, let's be serious. You don't get appendicitis and need to have your appendix out. And that's like, like you should be privileged to be, cared for. You don't have a choice. You have to have your appendix out. You have to have open heart surgery. You have to have antibiotics, whatever the cause is that brings you into the hospital. But you are paying for that. Like the amount of money that goes into healthcare is is sickening. And for this money to then be siphoned off to go to bonuses and board members and make this like, go to Wall Street tenant if you want to be private equity and you want to be moving money around and you want to if you want to play stock market, do it with somebody else's money. Don't do it with people who work hard for their health care and pay how much money for their health insurance, how much money these people pay for deductibles. The most heartbreaking thing in the hospital is when you see this woman, and I know her, and she's so sweet, and I don't know how she does it. She has this computer on wheels, and she wheels into your room, and she says, how are you going to pay your deductible? I mean, imagine sitting in the hospital, and you just had a baby. Or you're sitting in a hospital and you just had open heart surgery. You're sitting in the hospital and it's your mother and you don't know what her financial situation is. I mean, we don't know what our family members' situations are intimately. So you'd be sitting in that chair and somebody comes in and says, how is your mother going to pay for this? Like, what? You have a credit card right now. I mean, that's what we're dealing with here. It's disgusting.
What?
Yeah.
What a horrible job. You're like a fucking dementor.
Regular person. She's not like I don't think that this is a thing that you get a degree for or you go to college.
Right. No.
But you go in there, like, how much is that person making to be doing that every day? My heart breaks. I just say, like, how jaded can this person be? I'm jaded, but at least I don't have to talk to these people about how they're paying their bill.
Jesus. That's something else.
I want to see in your next contract that the person who does that job has to do it dressed as the Grim Reaper.
I think that the CEO should also have to dress as the Grim Reaper. I think if she's going to do the Grim Reaper, she has to do it too.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
Carla, I'm just curious because one of the things we talk on this show a lot about is like sort of the need in this moment and in the dark times that are coming to sort of like build real like local solidarities with our neighbors, our coworkers, the people in our city. And it seems like the Mass Nurses Association at St. Vincent has been pretty good at that, like maybe better than anywhere else I've seen. I want to ask you like how you approach that and like lessons you've learned and like, getting people on the right side and looking at things the right way.
I think it's hard, especially in these political environments. And it's hard, especially when we don't pick who's in our union, the employer hires people and they become part of our union. So it's not like we can have this like outreach of saying, this is what we're looking for to be in our union. Our union is who we work with and who the hospital has hired. But the best thing about Tenet is they organize us themselves. They make it such a working environment that people are like finding you. I don't have to be out looking for people most of the time. People are coming and finding me and saying, what's our plan? What are we doing next?
Yeah.
It's hard. It's definitely hard, especially in the, this political stuff that we have going on right now. And people are so trying to be solid in what their beliefs are. And we certainly have people who are like part of our union that are anti-union or that, have different political beliefs and what our bigger picture of the union is. But having an employer that's always picking on everybody makes it easy to bring people in and to have people move together. And when you're doing it for a greater purpose of which of taking care of patients, I don't know how people do it in other professions. My daughter's a union teacher, so they have the same kind of mindset of that they're doing this for the greater purpose of these, children that are in their classrooms.
Right.
So you move a movement when people are dedicated to what their profession is. But I think that when you see, when I go to labor events or I run into labor people and God, the people that came on the line were like so important and so life-changing for us when we were on strike. I don't think that people inside the building who crossed the picket line will ever understand the support that we got from our community and our union members and in activists in the community, not even just people who are union members, but activists in our community who were fighting for the right thing. So if you're on the right side of things, it's easy to get people to be on your side. It's easy to pull people in together, because whatever happens at St. Vincent's, I'm going to go to my grave knowing that I continue to keep fighting on the right side of things. And there's people who aren't going to be able to say that. There's people who aren't going to be able to have that as their legacy. And I'm proud. I'm proud of what we've done as union nurses, what we've done as a union community. We could have laid down in August of 2021 and said, we're going to go back, take our jobs back, and who cares about the ones that have been replaced? And we continue that strike from August into December. The hospital, for the people who don't know, the hospital had offered on August of 2021, about 7 months into our strike, to say that they'll settle the strike. They agreed to all the contract. We came to an agreement on all the things that, were still up in the air. We came to agreement of all those things. And at the very last minute, they dropped the hammer to say, and the nurses who've been replaced aren't going to get their jobs back. There's lists of names and job titles and job postings that, like, those are people who sat out on the line with us. Right. And I was in a position of my job wasn't replaced, because at the time I was in the float pool. So my job wasn't replaced. I was going to go back to my job. I was going to go back to my hours. It wasn't going to be a change for me at all. But I walked those streets with people who I was fighting for the ratios. Like, me personally was fighting for the better ratios. There was out people fighting, wanting better health insurance, wanting better whatever. We all had our own thing. But for me, I was fighting for the better ratios because that's what was affecting me and my patients. But I was out on that line in the freezing cold, in the 90, 100-degree weather. We had nurses passing out on the line because of the, overheating. And they weren't out there for the same fight as me. So when that came down in August, we said, yeah, I'm not going back. I'm not going to step over my brothers and sisters for the job. So that has brought us all together in a way that I know that they were fighting for me. I know that they went out and put a risk out for me and what the bigger picture, even if it didn't affect them. But then they know that I stayed out. I didn't fold. I didn't cross the picket line. I didn't give up when it was hard, and that I stayed so that they could get their jobs back, So they did this. They are the ones who united us more than anything by making the decisions that they thought we were snakes. They thought we were stupid. I mean, I don't know why a hospital would want to hire nurses and then turn around and act like we're stupid. Like,
well, I know why.
Yeah. One thing that bosses never seem to be able to understand is solidarity. It just doesn't seem to be a thing, and nothing organizes people, in my experience, better than a bad boss. But yeah, I just wanted to say I am proud of you, and I'm proud of all of you. I walked your line a lot of times. If anyone ever remembers the guy who would come and walk, the night shift from 10 to midnight with a big German Shepherd, that was me. I live right by the hospital. I walked the line. Well, you're welcome. And also, you don't have to thank me. And the reason I bring this up is not to toot my own horn, but to say, why did I walk the strike line with you guys? I'm not a nurse. I'm not in your union. I walked the strike line because I thought I agreed with everything that you were asking for and the importance of it. And I told you, my wife is a nurse and I understand why this stuff is important. Another reason I walked your line is that I've walked a lot of strike lines for a lot of strikes. And who's always on the strike line for strikes that aren't their strikes? It's the nurses. MNA, I've seen MNA walking out on the line with Verizon workers. I've seen MNA walking out on the line with Stop and Shop workers. I've seen MNA walking out on the line with a lot of different workers. And you all stand up and protect each other, and you protect your union siblings in other fields. And so I just wanted to get that on the record, and say that that's what's up. That's how we win the bigger
Mm-hmm.
things we want.
And it feels like it's a simple thing to do for somebody else. Like I've watched on other people's picket lines. It's a simple thing. It doesn't feel like you're doing a lot. But when I was on the other side of that, and to see that person coming and telling you where, everybody wants to tell you where they're from. Like they want to tell you what brought them to this unit. We had that was Bernie Sanders supporters. Like every once in a while, like he would send out a blast, or like the supporters would send out a blast, like go to the picket line. And all of a sudden we just like a whole bunch of people would show up, and it would be these Bernie Sanders supporters. But like people can say what their story is. And we'd have nurses taking the train from Boston to the picket line and saying, yeah, we just took the train and jumped on the train to come out to Boston, from Boston to support. But like that fuels you, especially on a long strike like that, because you can't sustain that picket line when you're also trying to sustain your family. Like you have to have another job. Your job isn't just sitting on that picket line. You have to be able to provide for your family. So you're working another job. So every month that picket line would get smaller and smaller and straggling, and people would come in on their way home from work and jump on the picket line for a few hours, but you still have to go home and feed your kids and bring your kids to soccer and do whatever else you're doing. But when you would turn around and on the darkest days, you would say, oh shit, like this person is like giving me hope, and like they're proud of you. And it seems a simple thing to tell a striking worker, like stay on the line, you're doing it one day longer. Those seem like such simple things to do, and that it doesn't affect, but you go home that day with like the real momentum to do the one day longer, to do that one more. It's so important. And I'll never forget that. And I'll never go past a picket line without having that, like, let's jump out and walk the line for a little bit. Let's beat the horn. Let's do what we have to do to support people.
God, I love tooting the horn. I tooted the horn as I lived over there. I tooted the horn every single day, and it was always the best part of my morning. Carla, this is our last question. I think we've got to let you go. But
okay.
So look at me. Imagine me. I am someone in a currently non-unionized workplace, but I have some coworkers that are starting to whisper, hey, we should probably start a union. And me personally, I'm a little unsure. What do you say to me, this hypothetical person that I've invented in my head right now?
Nobody is going to negotiate a better deal alone. Nobody is going to be able to get the better deal, because you're going to get that better deal, Bill. I'm going to go in there, right? You're going to get that better deal. Guess what? I'm knocking on the boss's door and I'm saying, well, how come I'm not getting what Bill's getting? I want more than what he has. And we're all going to keep doing that until suddenly now they're saying nobody's getting the deals. Nobody's getting a better deal. In fact, we're cutting it. In fact, we're cutting the cost. We're going to increase your health insurance. We're going to cut your days off. Oh, you used to have Martin Luther King Day off for a holiday. We're not having that holiday anymore. If we all do this together, we're all going to get a good deal. It might not be the best deal, but we're all going to get the same deal. And I'm not going to have that competition with you. We're not going to be cutting out each other and telling on each other and reporting each other for, oh, she's not working hard enough or they're not working hard enough. We're all going to be on the same deal, making the same money, and it's not going to be a contentious work environment among us. The contention is going to be between us and our boss, and that's the way it should be. You're never going to get a better deal on your own. You're never going to get a better deal because somebody else is going to come in. You're going to get a better deal, and then the boss's daughter comes and gets a job. You're not getting a better deal anymore. Wow.
Great. Carla,
that's solidarity, baby.
That was the most inspiring thing I think I've ever heard in my life. We gotta let you go, Chris. Do you have any more thoughts or questions for Carla?
I don't think I do. Okay. But yeah. Thank you so much for your time and for everything you're doing over there. And we got your backs. I know the contract's coming up. I'm right down the street. I'll be out there again if I need to. I hope we don't have to do that. But yeah.
I mean, I feel like we still have some bumps along the road, and I think we're getting to some place. And I'm feeling hopeful that we'll have more news of more people on their way out. You know.
Well,
Yeah,
personally, I really look forward to having you back on when this chief nursing officer gets the freaking boot. You know what I mean?
I do too. Yes. Hugest fan, Bill. Always been the big fan. You were so supportive during the strike. And now, Chris, I know you were the guy with the dog. So thank you. You guys. We couldn't be here without you guys. I mean, without the community, without people like you who were trolling the trolls when they were coming after us. So thank you. Thank you.
All we got is us, as I always say. All we got is us.
That's right. Solidarity forever, Carla. And be safe driving to work because it looks like it sucks out there.
Thank you so much, guys. Bye.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
A union town, all down the line. This is a union town, all down the line. And if they come to strip our rights away, we'll give them hell every time. This is a union town, all down the line.
Yeah, well, I am going to go about my day with a closed Arthur fist, thinking about bosses everywhere and what we can do about these bosses. These bosses, folks, they're out of control. And the Massachusetts Nurses Association, Carla and everyone else, is an inspiration on how to deal with a bad boss, because they've got one of the worst bosses I think you could possibly have with Tenet Healthcare.
Yeah, it's true. One of the things we didn't get, I don't think we fully covered in the interview that I want to touch on is, or I guess actually kind of two things. First is that the union about a month ago, 5-6 weeks ago maybe, came out to the press and to the Department of Public Health, importantly, and made a very disturbing and credible claim that in a prior weekend, 2 patients that were in the ICU died because of inadequate staffing. So those are real bodies that there is at least an allegation that they should be laid squarely at the feet of a for-profit healthcare company, and up to and including all of their bosses, including the departing CEO, Carolyn Jackson. Another thing they talked about in that doesn't come up as much in the interview is this IV fluid shortage. There is a nationwide IV fluid shortage that is at least in part related to the hurricane that hit North Carolina and caused all of that devastating flooding a few months ago. So yeah, literally climate change via capitalism causing supply chain issues yet again. So there's a factory that makes this IV fluid that was, I guess, disabled or rendered inoperable for some amount of time because of the hurricane. And so there's a shortage of IV fluid. And so what many hospitals around the country are doing is they are postponing elective surgeries that can wait until there's more IV fluid. St. Vincent, the union alleges, is not doing that. They are pressing on with those very profitable surgeries that are elective, and they're doing it to the detriment of all of their patients, both the patients getting those elective surgeries and patients who are in need of urgent or life-saving care are getting inadequate IV fluids. And there's another piece of it I'm not going to try to fully explain, but they have also talked about where a medication that is given to you via IV fluid that regulates your heart rate when you're in the emergency room or the ICU at a really important time to regulate your heart rate, wasn't properly administered through IV, and that a boss told a nurse to give the medicine in a tiny little remaining of IV fluid so that they would get, let's say, a 30-minute full IV bag of this medicine in the last little bit in about 3 minutes, which is something that I have heard from someone who is a nurse, could kill you. So yeah, I just wanted to say that these are I think it's probably very clear from the interview, but these are not theoretical or unserious concerns. People have probably already died at St. Vincent because of the profit seeking of its ownership, and unfortunately, that will probably continue to happen.
Man, it really raises a specific question here. Why would anybody wish for anything bad to happen to these hospital owners? Why would anyone wish for anything bad to happen to these insurance companies and the people who run these insurance companies? I just don't understand it. It's not like they've ever done anything wrong. It's not like they've ever abused an entire population of a country in order to extract rent from an industry that is vital to people's lives. It's not like anybody has ever intentionally inflicted misery to profit off of it. So I just don't know. I don't know why, it's got to just be social media, right? That, people are wishing ill towards these healthcare executives. And, we really need to police that kind of rhetoric. I think that's what I think.
Yeah. I think people should definitely narrow their definition of violence so that it doesn't include killing people that are needing life-saving care, so that you can put a 14th room on your mansion.
Right. Yeah. Another thing that we didn't talk about at all, and isn't really something that Carla should or could speak to as a nurse, but while all of these, cuts and unsafe working conditions and, this sort of monstrous treatment of nurses and patients was going on, Tenet was also engaged in a year-long feud with its principal health insurance provider, resulting in I think that it was 15,000 people got kicked off of their or weren't able to go to St. Vincent because of a healthcare plan change between Point 32 and Tenet, which got settled after everyone had to change health insurance and start paying much more on a different plan. A different plan means that you have to go to different freaking doctors, and your whole medical routine gets thrown into uncertainty. And it's already, for people who are going through it, the most stressful thing you have going on in your life. And what's already so uncertain and so stressful is just toyed with it as a negotiating tactic between Tenet and Point 32. I know this personally. It really made for a frustrating couple of weeks and more expensive cost of living for a lot of people around here. And there's no fucking recourse for that. There's no union for that, It really is an example of, we've talked about previously, the bust out when everybody's just, pulling every dollar that you can out of something before you light it on fire. This is really one mobster fighting with another mobster about who gets the last $5 that are in the cash register, or the last, bottle of Jim Beam that's behind the bar, while people's health outcomes and lives suffer as a result.
I'll make sure we put it in the links. But I had a battle with Point 32 Healthcare about a year and a half or so ago when through a fuck up completely on their end because of a ransomware attack. I wasn't able, my wife and I both were not able to access our health insurance for almost a month, even though it was paid for and we had it, we couldn't use it. It meant my wife couldn't get her migraine medication. So she got migraines. She missed days of work because of it. And a great reporter over at Boston Public Radio did an interview with us about it. And I'll make sure it gets in the links. Yeah, we were never our coverage was never prorated. We never like got any money back or anything. We did actually get an apology from one of the PR hacks at Point 32 Health, which I am going to frame and put on my wall because that will never happen again. But yeah, we got an apology and nothing.
God damn. I hate in my heart. When I went to Europe with High Command a couple of years ago, I was talking to this guy, and we were in Belgium, and I was talking to this guy about like the differences between America and Europe. And he goes, yeah, when I go to the doctors, which I do regularly for regularly scheduled checkups, I put €1 down on the counter. I go and see my primary care doctor, who I know well. And then I leave the doctor's office and I pick that euro back up. No health insurance companies. None of that. No being on the phone for 4 fucking hours, waiting to talk to a customer service representative who can't even help you.
Yep.
You know, no dealing with an entirely new medical routine when the hospital and insurance provider are beefing over, cents on the dollar. They put €1 down. They go to the doctor. They get the euro back. That is how it should work. That is how it works almost everywhere except here. We are such little fucking piggies in this country. The treatment that we allow ourselves to experience at the hand of these disgusting profiteers. It is a uniquely American problem, and it is most obvious in the healthcare industry. It's crazy. It's crazy that across the border in Canada, it's like that. Like in America Light, like the place that wants to be America so bad, like they have it demonstrably better than we do. On this, like one of the most vital, like components of a functioning society, and
yeah. And I mean, like it's crazy because I think there's a lot of things that you and I talk about, and lots of people who I would say are like broadly leftists talk about that we want to see be better, but we have to sort of imagine what those systems would look like. This is not one of those things. The thing we want to be better exists in almost every country in the world besides the one we live in. It's already there and they're doing it and it works. And I don't want to I don't want to oversimplify that or paint over the fact that in almost all of those places the same fucking cretins or different versions of the same cretins are desperately trying to take public health care away and drive it into a privatized model like we have. But they still have some semblance of a way better thing than we have. And like it's right there. We could just fucking do that, what they're already doing.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's because their parliamentary systems function. Whereas in our duopoly, private healthcare is easily a bipartisan consensus. And that's not changing until the duopoly changes. The Democratic Party is not good on this issue.
That
cannot be relied on. Massachusetts, probably one of the better states in the entire country in terms of public option for healthcare. It still sucks. It still fucking sucks. And that we're a little bit closer to having a normal rational system than the rest of the country or most places in the country doesn't excuse how irrational it is here. Actually, we kind of have a responsibility to push for more here than somewhere where there's just fucking nothing. And that's part and parcel with the work that the nurses are doing. I love the way that Carla put it, that you got to think about a company like Tenet as like the tip of the spear. Like this is the company that accepts the position of being like transparently evil so that they can establish, like they can build these systems of cruelty that other hospitals then take to be their fiduciary responsibility to pursue because, they're making more money by doing this stuff. So we have to. And in that way, you kind of see the nurses, the stand that the nurses are taking is like fundamentally larger and more significant, more important than any one contract or contract dispute.
They say, I think it's probably clear by now to people, but I am expressly pro-union, pro-organized labor. It is a very central tenet of my ideology. So I've had this conversation with people a lot of times, and I think the tide is turning somewhat, but I have grown up and lived in adulthood in a country where a lot of people aren't pro-union and aren't pro-organized labor. And a place where you see it a lot is public sector workers, but not just there. And a thing that I always tell people is that what they get, they're the vanguard, right? What they get affects what all of us can ask for. And if they get more, all of us can ask for more. And if they get fucked, all of us get more fucked. It's a rising tide that lifts all boats, or a lowering tide that drops all boats. And so they are really out there, not just fighting for their own protections and wages and benefits, and for the safety and dignity of their patients. They're fighting for all of us, including those of us who aren't in unions. And more people should be in unions. If you ever have a question about organizing your workplace, definitely let me know. I've done it. And I can tell you some ideas about how to do it. But that's the fight that they're taking on. And that's one of the other reasons that every time there's a fucking strike line, I go walk it. It's important for all of us. And I'm fighting for everyone, including myself. And I think the last thing I want to say about everything we've been talking about and about the interview we just did with Carla is a question I wanted to ask her, but at the time that it would have come up, we were having kind of a much brighter end to the conversation. So I left it aside. I wanted to ask her what it's been like to go to work every day throughout the years of this contract at a workplace where your bosses actively fucking hate you and try to make your life miserable as a way to get you to quit. But I think we all know what the answer to that is. It's fucking miserable. These people are working in miserable working conditions every single day. And not everyone is making it through that. There are people who used to be nurses at St. Vincent who are not anymore. There are people that they lost during the strike, and there's people that they lost since then. And so Carla is a fucking badass, and everyone who remains in that hospital and is staying in this fight is a fucking badass. And I just wanted to say that very clearly.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. It's really, really good to talk to somebody like that who's in it and isn't getting buck broken by it, isn't letting it break their spirit, is actively fighting back and understands the stakes and what can happen to you if you let the bastards get you down, and it's just not letting the bastards get her down. I mean, I wasn't kidding when I said that. That I found it inspiring. It was really nice to hear the way that she talked about it, and nice to put a W in the W column for the local left in general. I think that we can all, and it behooves us all to say that the abrupt resignation of Carolyn Jackson is because of the nurses at St. Vincent, who are our neighbors, colleagues, friends, loved ones, refusing to capitulate to an insanely evil company. That is a win for us, and we should be shouting it from the rooftops, as far as I'm concerned. But
Carolyn Jackson was sent here to break the nurses union at St. Vincent, and she failed. She was sent here to decimate their almost year-long strike and not capitulate to their demands, and she failed. She was here to get their union decertified after they spent a year on the line trying to win this contract, which they won, and she failed. And now Carolyn Jackson, bye-bye.
bye.
And the Mass Nurses Association union nurses at St. Vincent Hospital are still fucking there.
That's right. Perfect way to end it, Chris. This has been fun.
A reaction, equal and opposite. That's why, my friend, the blood tastes good every time I'm here. I got a will to win and a Cheshire grin. Yeah, the night watchman is near, and you can't get it where you're at, but you can sure get it here. So come rain or sleet or dark or night, come wind or frigid snow, there's 100,000 in the streets, and that number's gonna grow. And when we put the governor on trial, I'll be in the front row. Just take a look around, we're a union town. 1, 2, 3, 4, let's go. This is a union town, a union town. All down the line, this is a union town, a union town. All down the line. And if they come to strip our rights away, we'll give them hell every time. This is a union town, a union town. All